Stop. No stairway.
No stairway. Denied.
Oh yeah? Well, what about this one then? Pauses for copyright. I saw you sitting in the center of the circle. Everybody. Pauses again. Copyright's a. Everybody wanted something from you. I saw you sitting there. I love doing things like this. I had thought I'll go out and do a video based on In the World Tonight because, again, I'm at Camber Sands and Paul came down here to do the footage for the promotional song or video for the song In the World Tonight. Now the song had originally been released with a promotional video, and you see Paul, I think it's at Mill Studios, and he's got a yellow parasol revolving around him. But in 2020, 2 videos were released by the producer Geoff WONFOR, and what they'd done, it was March 1997, and they'd gone out over a course of 2 evenings, I think, or 2 days, and just did some footage. And you might have seen this video on the Vivo website, or at least on YouTube for Paul, with the ghetto blaster, and he's walking through the streets, and I thought, I know where that is. This is perfect ammunition for a new video. So rather than just do that, I thought, well, hang on, let's have a look at Flaming Pie. Now, Flaming Pie was released in 1997. It was Paul's 10th solo studio album, and he hadn't done an album since Off the Ground, so there'd been a 3-year lapse. Off the Ground had the erstwhile band, which was Chris Whitten on drums, Paul Wickens on keyboards, and Robbie McIntosh and Stuart Hamish, so that kind of lineup from Flaming Pie onwards. But then he started work on the Beatles anthology, and that took up so much of his time. And there's a quote that he says it surprised him to recall the standards that the Beatles adhered to in order to create their work, and this encouraged him to go forth and make a new album, and it would be Flaming Pie, using those standards. Now, Paul practically does everything on the album, but it is co-produced by Jeff Lynne, and the orchestration is co-produced by George Martin. So actually what we get here is we get Paul doing all his work, playing all the instruments, but we get contributions from Jeff Lynne, backing vocals, guitars. Ringo does some drumming on several tracks. Linda does backing vocals, and Steve Miller contributes guitar work and also vocals on Used to Be Bad. Now, Paul and Steve Miller go back to a period of 1969. Sorry, I'm going to have to stretch out my legs here. I don't do yoga, as you can tell. There was an acrimonious argument at Olympia Studios between the Beatles to do with the contract signing with Alan Klein. So George, Ringo and John stormed out from the session, leaving Paul there by himself. And Steve Miller was there. Whether he was in the meeting, obviously not, but he was maybe at the studio. And Paul and Steve did a jam session and came up with a song called My Dark Hour, which was released on the Steve Miller Band album. Little clip here. There's a famous riff there, isn't there? Which would appear on Fly Like an Eagle. Paul is credited on the Steve Miller Band as Paul Ramone, which is a hark back to when they were touring in Scotland as the Silver Beatles, and he was Paul Ramone there. Kind of makes me think that the Ramone split Rom and on, that becomes Ram on. Is that the song? Ram on? Paul Ramone. So for Flaming Pie, Paul recruits or has a chat with Steve. Whatever happens, Steve Miller is involved in Flaming Pie. Fabulous. I love his vocals on Used to Be Bad, and the guitar work. Great song. So what I thought I would do in this album, I want to have a quick look at the locations. Now I'm at Camber Sands, and there's footage of Paul from the 2020 video where he's sitting in a circle. He's walking along the this area here, which is the end of the jetty, and you see footage of him in the sand dunes behind me. On sand dunes here, I can't tell if it's working there. So we've covered this base. I want to go into Hastings and map out all those little sections from the video. There is also Mill Studios in Sussex. Am I allowed to go there? Let's see what happens. And also Young Boy. So we'll talk further about the album as I get to each of these locations. In the meantime, sunny Hastings. Sunny Hastings, eh? One night in March 1997, for 2 hours, Paul came down here with 3 other people, Geoff, WONFOR, and 2 cameramen. And they basically did footage for the video, the promotional video. It's an interesting video to watch because the cut is very quick. A second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds on each of the scenes. So it's ding, 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 like that. But the route that they took from the roller coaster down there and then all the way back to the Italian restaurant, then through the underpass and into the town, they just recorded multiple sections of the song. So it wasn't like linear, you know. I saw you sitting in the centre of a circle and then singing the whole thing as he walked along. So he must have done, over the course of the 2 hours, just kept singing it. He had the ghetto blaster on his shoulder, big overcoat, and continued to sing, probably sang the whole song for each of the sections, or a verse for each of the sections, and they videoed different things. So before I do the locations map thing, just wanted to point out that there's a very good website that Geoff WONFOR, whether he hosts it or whether it was just his commentary, Club Sandwich. I'm going to put a link in the description below because it gives his insight into what happened on that night, particularly to do with the hitchhiking section. And it's a really good read because you get the story of Paul trying to hitchhike, and something like 40 cars went by and nobody stopped to give him a lift. What was it? He said, greatest excuses of the 20th century, number 4. Sorry I'm late, love. I had to give Paul McCartney a lift. He was thumbing a lift. Give him a ride. It's a good read. I'll put a link in the description. It just kind of shows you the humility or humanity of Paul, that he could just turn up and do 2 hours because people are not going to believe. They're like, nah, it's not Paul, is it? No, of course it is, and he wouldn't come down. So nobody batted an eyelid, nobody paid any attention to him. And you'll get that when you read Geoff WONFOR's comments. Anyway, let's have a look at this. We've got the hut where he was trying to flag down, you know, hitchhiking. We've got the blue building here where he's, you know, exasperated because the bus hasn't stopped for him. And then as we go further up, we've got the Pelican Crossing. There's several shots here, and I'll point them out when we get there. There's the Amusements Arcade, the Pavilion I think it's called. Then further up is the Italian restaurant and the roundabout. You've got the underpass going into the town, and then finally the bus stop where an obliging driver does pick up the hitchhiker. And we'll see when I get there and I superimpose that you will find it wasn't just any, you know, driver. But we'll get there when we do it. Outside the hut, the location where he's doing his hitchhiking. Obviously there were cars parked here, and he's walking through, standing on the street. Standing on this location, he's trying to hail down the bus, and ironically a bus goes by. Just outside the Hastings Miniature Railway, he's walking backwards, and you've got a advertising boarding here, which is no longer there. From the middle of this Pelican Crossing, and you've got the barrier there with a little brick wall. So we have a little scene of him walking along there. And then on this side of the Pelican Crossing, there's quite a few scenes actually. He's walking along on this side in front of the switch, but then you actually see him propping up this one. I think in this scene is one of the only ones where he's actually smiling at the camera. We do get a few scenes where he's inside the amusements. I'm not actually going to go in, but I will give you a bird's eye view just standing from the door. Just here would have been where the BT telephone box stood, because you've got a BT exchange thing going on here. And I know it's the right location because of the buildings and then that white round building leading off into the old high street. This is the roundabout scene. You've got the Italian restaurant in the background. So he's obviously walked onto the roundabout. He does a little bit of a circuit because you get him walking around that side where the London and St Leonard's sign is. And then he's walking across the middle of this roundabout here, just screaming, "Hey, hey, hey!" Get a nice little scene here outside the Cafe Royale. He's obviously come through the underpass, and he's giving the "call me" sign, and I think one girl actually almost recognises him. And of course we get him walking through the tunnel. There's a homeless man there now, and there was in the video. And then he comes down into the town square here. There used to be a clock tower here, but you've got the building in the far right with the two tiny arched windows. That appears in a scene, and he's kind of positioning himself between some of the pedestrians. We even get some footage of him walking along past the murals here. And so finally at this very bus stop just outside the Italian restaurant, someone obligingly picks him up, but we actually notice it's an MPL car. Just look at that number plate at the bottom left. And off they drive. But can you imagine not giving Paul McCartney a lift because he's hitchhiking? I did pass someone the other day. I was driving along and they were hitching, and I thought, should I, shouldn't I? And I didn't. Maybe I should. Next time I'm down in Hastings and someone's thumbing a lift and it's dark, I'm going to give it a go. So yeah, down at Hastings, 2 hours, 2 cameramen, one producer and Paul McCartney. Just let's see what we can do with this, shall we? I do like that whole vibe of McCartney's, you know, well, let's just do it and let's see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky. Right, I've got something I think you're going to like, this next location, so get myself an ice cream and then I'll take you there. Salted caramel and rum and raisin, that's what I'm talking about. Right, let's go to that location. Let's go through the 1066 country path. Now, going back to the album, it got to number 2 in the USA and the UK, and it received gold status in 4 countries, 3 of which I know, USA, UK and Norway. So quite an outstanding jump back into the foray of music for McCartney. Now, it was recorded in 4 locations: Abbey Road, Air Studios in London, George Martin's studio, probably for the orchestration. Idaho, Sun Valley, is that Sun Valley Studios? So Paul had obviously gone over to Steve Miller's location and they recorded there. But they also recorded here. This is Hog Hill Studio. It's McCartney's very own Sussex location. Can you imagine how many people have tread this location, you know, walked through the threshold of this studio? All those famous bods, not excluding Paul McCartney. It's amazing being here. I'm kind of like this close to the studio. That being said, I was this close to Abbey Road, wasn't I? And when I do the video for London, where I'll be at Trident Studios, I'll be this close. But this kind of feels like I'm trespassing, because this is like his own private land. However, this is a public footpath, and I'm entitled to walk on here free of charge. There's lots and lots of footage for this location from Paul with his current band playing outside the front of the windmill. So it's probably here that he recorded most of the tracks for Flaming Pie, because I believe if Air Studios and Abbey Road were used, that was probably the studio for the orchestration. And apart from the track with Steve Miller, I half expect someone to come out and tell me, "Oi, get off my land." But I think McCartney's in the USA at the moment, at the time of recording this video. So yeah, there you have it. Now, the album gave us 14 tracks. And this is the, for me, kind of the anomaly. With all of the artists that I have as favourite artists, they will release, you know, a new album periodically, and you play the album and you think, "Oh, good song." Then the next one, "Oh, good song." Then the next one, that's a filler, I'll skip that. Then the next one, "Oh, that's another filler." I think on Flaming Pie, it was actually an album of so many good songs that none of them were skippable, if that's a good way of saying it. Now you get, we're in the era of the compact disc, so you've got 14 tracks which can fit on a compact disc. You know, it's the era of CDs and compact disc players. So he's really pushed out a lot of songs. So you get to see his new creativity. He's obviously spurred on by the making of the anthology, the Beatles anthology, you know, masterpiece for what it was. But here he comes again, and he's got Jeff Lynne helping him do the production. And we know Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra, don't we? He's so prolific, worked with George Harrison on the Travelling Wilburys. And I think that it's probably the only time Jeff Lynne's worked with McCartney. And you can kind of hear Jeff Lynne's influence. Unlike when he did the albums for George Harrison, you really do hear Jeff Lynne's kind of vibe, his style, his music, even his drum sounds. But on this album, it's McCartney with a little bit of Jeff Lynne. Now, all songs are credited to McCartney, except for two. You've got Used to Be Bad, which is the collaboration of Steve Miller and Paul McCartney. And then there's Really Love You, which was a jam session that Ringo and Paul were involved with. So they were up here at Mill Studios doing their, recordings, and they got into the jam, and Jeff Lynne jumped on guitars, and he was doing backing singing. But this is the only time we get a song that's credited to McCartney and Starkey. I know that on the Beatles, was it Flying, all four of them are credited as, you know, the composers of the song. But yeah, Really Love You, Starkey and McCartney. I'm available, Paul, if you need me to come and play some guitar, do some backing singing. I know where it is now, so I wouldn't get lost. I could bring my own instruments as well. Alternatively, because you're considering retirement, you might want to go into production. And I'm in the middle of an album, which I need to finish. So I've got 2 songs that need lyrics, and I understand you're a good composer. Just putting it out there. Right, one more thing to look at. Oh, did I say about the people that had walked in? There's a fabulous bit of footage. Klaus Voormann, the bass player, Manfred Mann, John Lennon, Beatles in their early days at the Cavern. And he put together an album in 2009, and he got Paul to be involved, I think on one track, maybe more. And he turned up here, and that video is available on YouTube. I will put a link in the description below. I'll probably put a link up here as well. definitely worth a watch, because it's so emotional, and you get Klaus's reaction to the love that he and Paul share.
I'm taking mine.
Okay.
See you, Klaus. Thanks, man.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And it obviously stems back from, you know, Hamburg days and their involvement in each other's lives throughout the decades. And the end is really quite touching. Definitely worth a watch. Hog Hill. Oops. I don't want to slam the gate. Hog Hill Mill Studios, Sussex. Just in case you never knew where it was. Now you know. McCartney, trees, connections, wildlife, strawberry fields forever, young boy. Again, the second video produced by GEOFF WONFOR. Now, unlike my other videos where I went to Knoll Park, strawberry fields forever, there were 2 of them. Oh, I wonder if this is the tree. I wonder if this is the tree. Link up here. I have no doubt that this selection of trees is where, and I can only perhaps suggest frolicking is a good word. We get McCartney in the footage for GEOFF WONFOR's video, traipsing around the trees, doing his thing, singing his song. Find love, it's a secret combination. Oh yeah, I think there were 2 videos for that as well, so where did you go? Am I out of shot? Disappeared behind the trees. I was going to do some jiggery pokery. I wonder if that'll work. Am I in the picture? You know, where I walk behind and suddenly I'm not there, and then suddenly I come from this side and I'm in this tree walking across. Oh, it's so silly. Actually, come up here, because I think these trees, this little batch of trees might actually be better. Moving my camera somewhat, because I think maybe these are the 3 trees. We see him kind of coming round, doing his thing. As I say, I love doing these videos, location videos. Stepping in the footprints of giants. Is McCartney not a giant? Is he not a man of the people? So there you go. Now I'm going to do this just as a kind of an aside, because in the video for Young Boy, he disappears over the brow of a hill waving goodbye, and it's actually this hill here. So if I place the camera just about there, oh, let's get the tripod working. Will that work? We're doing this on the fly, people. So he's at the top of the hill. I'm walking up because I'm not sure if I'm in shot. To get this little scene, McCartney, here's the video. And I will do the same. Thank you for watching and bearing with. Hopefully see you in another video, and bye for now.